Now, today we are going to focus on a topic, but before we start our class, let's consider some things that we did last week. Last week, we were able to sit for a cat, which was online. And to say the truth, the cat has already been marked, and your results are there. You can check your results. Your results are there. You can check them online. Kindly, those whose microphones are on, mimi sitapigana na wewe, nakurusha tu hii. If you join with my class with your microphone on, I will not spend much time telling you to switch off your microphone. I will just kick you out. I think tumefika wakati ambapo tunafaa kuanza darasa na wengine wetu wanatupigia kelele. Here, I'm not going to take it lightly. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to take an action and I'm just going to kick you out. The next time you'll be joining this class will be next week, a day like today. Now today, I want us to focus on the cut that we did. We did a cut last week. And in that particular cut, I have already marked the cut and you can see the results. There is a way you can see those results. And some of you did a very good job, while others, of course, they did a very shoddy job. You do a shoddy job, you get shoddy marks. It is a garbage in, garbage out. You do garbage work, you get garbage marks, and so on and so forth. I don't want to dwell so much on that because my time is almost so much gone. I want us to start our topic today by sharing my screen. I'm going to share my screen. So the topic today is corporate social responsibility. Corporate social responsibility. And this is a topic that we have covered when we were looking at what? When we were looking at strategic perspectives of PR, of strategic activities of PR. Because CSR is one of the activities or the strategic perspectives of public relations. And when you talk about corporate social responsibility, normally we call it CSR, it is a management concept. It's a management concept whereby companies integrate social and environmental concerns in their business. What are we saying? Companies integrate, they bring together social and environmental concerns in their business operations and interaction with their stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders? The stakeholders are people who actually take what? They share in the benefits of the company. Let's say, for example, the products and the services. You buy the product, the company's product, what we call products and services, you become the stakeholder of that particular company. But we also have the shareholders. Shareholders and stakeholders are totally different people. Because shareholders, it means that you own that company, you own a share of that particular company. For example, if you own a particular share of that particular company, that means that that company goes down, and then they will have to pay you because you are part and parcel of that particular company. But it depends how many shares you have got in that particular company, because we have major shareholders and minor shareholders. Now, CSR generally understood, or CSR is generally understood as being the way through which a company achieves a balance of economic, a balance of environmental, and a balance of what we call imperatives. So while at the same time, they try as much as possible, the organization, to address the expectations of shareholders and stakeholders. So in this essence, it is very important to draw a distinction between CSR, which can be a strategic business management concept, and charity, or also and also what we call sponsorship and philanthropy. You know, there is sponsorship and philanthropy. When you talk about philanthropy, you are actually saying you are giving. To be philanthropic is that you are a person of giving. You give charity, you give. Hiyo ndio tunasema philanthropy. When you talk about sponsorship, you're talking about helping or coming up with a plan of helping someone achieve a certain goal, or helping an organization or a particular group of people achieve a certain goal. Like you can offer sponsorship to sponsor Harambee Stars to go and play with children. Unaamua nitawanunulia jezi, nitawanunulia uniform, nitasponsor air ticket yao, something like that. That is sponsorship. But don't take sponsorship the way others take it. Because when people hear sponsorship, they think of you coming close to a very wealthy man, and this wealthy man does what? Pays for your rent, pays for your food, pays for your all those things. So you don't have to confuse CSR and philanthropy and sponsorship. Those are things that you should not confuse. Then there is what we call the key issues in what we call CSR, what we call environmental management. Environmental management. So you will find that organizations involving themselves in environmental management. And when you talk about environmental management, utapata kampuni kama Safaricom ama kampuni kama Airtel, they're involving themselves in environmental management. For example, you'll find that they are planting trees. They will find that they are collecting garbage in the main cities or main towns. They are also making what we call and blocking what we call trenches in town and so on and so forth. There is also what we call eco-efficiency. Also, they are responsible for sourcing stakeholders in engagement, also labor standards and working conditions. So, and also employees and community relations. So in other words, you find that a company engages itself into or involves itself into what we call community involvement, or it involves itself in the community. And the reason as to why this company involves themselves with the community work and so on and so forth is to give back to the community what it deserves. For example, you'll find that a company has been built in a place whereby the road networks are very poor. There is poor what we call electrification and so on and so forth, or no electrification at all. But once a company is built in such a place or in such a location, you find that that company ensures that, or it tries as much as possible to make sure that the road is tarmac, make sure that there is power, make sure that there is what we call proper sanitation, good water. There is they do what they sponsor even students from less fortunate families or from those poor background families and so on and so forth. So when you talk about CSR, the main reason as to why we have CSR, number one, we can say that it's because you want what? It's because the organization wants to create an awareness of its existence. It's because maybe the organization wants to build what we call corporate image. It's because maybe organization want people to know their products and services. It's because, again, you want to attract investors. Because once you do a CSR, you attract a lot of investors. Like, for example, think of Equity. Equity Wings to Fly. Wings to Fly. This is a program, and this program is aimed at helping those people who have performed very well in their KCSE and KCPE, and then the Equity Bank does what we call, they sponsor these children. They ensure that they go to very good schools, they get everything that they need, and so on and so forth. And in the process of doing so, if you can, I can, and then when next Equity is announcing Wings to Fly, because it is most of the time on TV, check those people that have been invited, or check those people who are actually um, the one, the one, no, the ones that are invited, and also look at the kind of people that this particular organization attracts. You'll find number one, it attracts the Ministry of Education. You'll find that a big company like Safaricom is the one that is also backing them and so on and so forth. So in other words, when you do CSR, you are attracting investors. You are attracting different people. You're also building your own corporate image. So the social responsibilities of organizations that we are told that companies are not stable, and they are not there to provide services and facilities which should properly be provided by the welfare agency and paid for out of taxation. But companies, we are told, are part of the society. Companies are part of the society in which they operate, and they need to consider their corporate behavior as part of their role in the society. For example, think of a company. You want to start a company and you want to start it somewhere in maybe Ruiru town, maybe an industry. If the society rejects that company from taking place, my friend, even if you start that particular company, the society will not buy your products and services. That's how it is. So therefore, we are saying that you as a company, you should be number one, accepted by the society in which you operate. Because once you are accepted by the society, then it means that the products and services that you are producing, the society is also going to do what? To accept them. If you go to YouTube and if you go to Google and look at some companies that have been barred by the society or the community from taking place in that particular community, there are many. And if they, there are some companies here in Kenya, there is a lot of corruption. Napata ya kwamba kuna corruption, minister fulani anataka kuanza kampuni fulani, anaenda na grab land fulani, na anaanza kampuni yake. You realize that the society, most of the time in such a scenario, they are not so much interested with what the company does. But if you are a good company, you involve the society. I think you will get to know whether the society will do what? Will buy your product or not. Even if you take them to, because at the end of the day, when you start an industry, your products and services has to be taken to a departmental store, supermarket, retail shops, and so on and so forth. So when the community meets these products and services in the retail stores and departmental stores, they might not buy them because in the first place you are not allowed to operate that. The community did not invite you, or you operated against the community's wishes. You started your business against the community wishes. So as an industry or as an organization, it is always good to get into terms with the community. So the impact that businesses have in the community in which they operate come in these three different levels. So there is what we call the impact which businesses have in the community. And these impacts, they come in three different levels. Number one is the most basic level. And we are saying that a company fulfills the legal requirements laid upon it. It pays the taxes, observes the law, and deals fairly with its stakeholders. That is the most basic. Before you start a company here in Kenya, before you start an industry here in Kenya, number one, you're supposed to make sure that you have all the legal requirements. Kama ni land umeinunua legally, haukwenda kugrab land ukajenga hoteli yako, haukwenda kuchukua land ya shule ama land ya university alafu ukajenga a departmental store there or a supermarket there. No, you didn't do that. you followed the legal requirement. That is, you bought the land from in a legal way, and then apart from that, you also pay taxes and you observe the laws that have been put forth by that particular country. Failure to which you cannot operate. How do you start an industry without maybe following the law, without meeting the legal requirements? That one can never happen. Whether in Kenya, whether in US, whether in Tanzania, Uganda, Australia, that one can never happen. You first of all have to be clean when it comes to law. Number two, you are told that at level 2, the company takes account of its reasonability as an organization and considers any negative effect it may have. In other words, we are saying that if you're going to start an industry somewhere, you must take responsibility of anything that is going to happen. If you're going to do what is called pollution, water pollution, na wenyeji wajua ya kwamba kuna water pollution, then unafaa kuchukua total responsibility for polluting the water in that particular place. So you're also told, for example, what is the potential effect of the company, the potential, like for example, there is what we call potential effect of the company existence, the process and product on the environment. Because we have products and services that pollute the environment completely. You can be manufacturing something like maybe, for example, bread. You are a baker, but now there are some chemicals that you use. Where does this chemical go? You might be manufacturing, say, for example, iron sheets. Those iron sheets, especially corrugated iron sheets, there are some chemicals that are used in making them. Where do you dispose these chemicals? Do you dispose them in the river? Do you dispose them in what we call easy tar or trenches? Do you dispose them in people's land and so on and so forth? So those are some of the things that you're told at level 2, the company must take full responsibility of its action. If animals are dying because of chemical emission, then you must compensate them as a company. Another thing is a very good example, for example, is Kenya WS, Kenya Wildlife Services. There are people who live close to game parks or national reserves. And most of the time you find that those animals, they break into people's property. Like, for example, people's chambers, and they eat what these people, or destroy what these people have planted. Sometimes you have seen, even in the news, that people have been attacked by wild animals. Who should take the responsibility? It is the Kenya Wildlife Services. So in other words, we are saying the company must take account of its reasonability and responsibility as an organization. As far as you operate close to a community, then if anything wrong happens to that community, then you must take responsibility as an organization. Sometimes you go to you go to supermarket, you have had people in the end of supermarket, I bought a certain drink, and when I took that drink, he died or something of the sort. I started developing some complications. And when you look clearly, you find that there are some chemicals that maybe, for example, were actually, after maybe some investigation, you find that katika zile drinks ama katika zile chakula kulipatikana chemicals ambazo ziliaffect watu fulani ama wanyama fulani, then you should take responsibility as an organization. Number 3, you are told the company operating at level 3 is less common, and this type of organization sees itself as having a responsibility for health, so a healthy society, and accepts the job of helping to remove or alleviate problems in the society. So there are those organizations that exist in a society And once they exist in a society, they try as much as possible to alleviate the problems that this society is facing. The problems might be number one, maybe there is lack of water. So you make sure that the government comes and and drill boreholes for the community. Maybe, for example, the primary schools and the high schools that are there, they do not have toilets. The classrooms are very bad. Eh? They are they're in a very bad shape. So as an organization, you go there and you build classrooms for them, including what we call toilets and so on and so forth. Now that is corporate social responsibility. As an organization, you are alleviating the poverty. You are alleviating the bad condition that this society is living in. Maybe there is poor road network. You ensure that there is you may ensure that there is a proper or there is good infrastructure for the community, and so on and so forth. So why organizations then should they consider CSR? Why should organizations be involved in what we call CSR? Corporate social responsibility. I think I touched on this when we were starting. There is this guy called Friedman in 1962. So Friedman in 1962 argues and says that he argues that the very foundation of our free society would be undermined. It would be undermined if corporate officials accepted social responsibility other than to make much money for their stockholders as possible. However, this person called Davis in 1967, is what he says, that he believes that no responsibility is more power. So it means that if you are given a responsibility, then you have the power. In fact, they say that responsibility comes with power comes with responsibility. Power comes with responsibility. So he argues, Davis, 1967, believes that no responsibility is no power. In other words, it means that if you have a responsibility, then you have the power. So if you have the power, then you have the responsibility. If organizations wish to maintain their position of power in a pluralistic society, a pluralistic society is a society where we have diverse groups of people. We have different kinds of people. So if an organization wishes to maintain their position of power in a pluralistic society, then they must accept their social responsibility. That's what Davis, 1967, says. So therefore, it means organizations have the power because they have a responsibility. And what is the responsibility? The responsibility is a social responsibility. Why does that industry exist there? It exists there to satisfy or to meet its goals and to satisfy customers' requirements profitably. If you don't meet customers' requirements profitably, then why should I be engaged in such a company or in such an organization? Why should I buy goods from you? Why should I be involved with you as an organization? You are not benefiting me. Then the best way I can do, I will leave you. So in other words, we are saying you must maintain your position of power in a pluralistic society and you must accept your social responsibility. A very good example is what I've told you about those people who live close to national parks or national reserves. You find that these animals sometimes break out of these reserves and they do what we call, they attack people. They attack the residents. Some of these animals, they even destroy the plantations and so on and so forth. So whose responsibility is that to put these things back to normal? It is the organization's responsibility. So if you don't take such a responsibility, then I don't think the community will be so much happy about you. Tumesikia wengine wamekuwa attacked pia na mamba, wengine wameatakiwa mpaka na monkeys, baboons. Baboons wanatoka kwenye national parks, especially those who live in Nakuru, close to Nakuru National Park. There are baboons that break out of national reserves and they go to Sometimes they are very rampant. I remember sometimes back, like 10, 20 years ago, those baboons used to come to where the residents, the people are, the community is. And they will time you when you're going to the shop, when you're carrying bread, inakuja inakunyang'anya, utastukia tu mkate umeenda, utastukia tu mandazi ambao ulikuwa umeendea imeenda, utastukia wako kwenye mabasi, wanaingia kwa nyumba, they carry everything including food stuff, they destroyed what we call farm produce and so on and so forth. And this is the responsibility of the government, especially the Kenya WSS, Kenya Wildlife Service, to compensate the residents and to ensure that these animals are not in a position to get to where the community or the society is. Because these are wild animals. That's why they are called wild animals. So we are looking at why organizations should consider their CSR. Number one is pluralism. Pluralism. So when you talk about pluralism, we live in a pluralistic society. I think we have said that pluralism is when we are living in a where we have got what we call diverse groups. We have diverse groups of different kinds of people. So we live in a pluralistic society where diverse groups exist and where power and responsibilities are shared. So every business institution has some power, and therefore they are responsible to a number of groups of which its stockholders are only one, are the only one. So they include staff and wider community. And these groups also have the responsibility of the business institutions which arise out of power to its effect. So sometimes we live in a pluralistic, what we call pluralistic society, and people are diverse. They have got what we call diverse needs and so on and so forth. Number two, the reason as to why we engage ourselves into what we call a CSR, or companies engage themselves into corporate social responsibility, because of reputation. Every company wants a good reputation. Even you as a person, you'd always want a very good reputation. You'd always want to have a good name. A good reputation, in other words, known as good name. And maybe you have, maybe some organization takes even 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, 100 years to build a good name. But it can only take seconds to destroy that good name. If you do something wrong, suppose, for example, talk about a bank, XYZ Bank. It has been in existence for 100 years. And one day, people are withdrawing money from the ATM. You withdraw like 10,000 shillings, and you find that 3,000 shillings are fake. Somebody withdraws, say, for example, 40,000, and he finds that 10,000 shillings are fake. This one is written in the newspaper. Because whatever is written in the newspaper has to be investigated by journalists. And then the following day, what do you think will happen the following day? People will withdraw their money from such an institution and will invest in other institutions. So the company has built a reputation for 100 years, but it has been destroyed within a second. So company's reputation can be seen as the sum of the public belief about it based on their own experiences, on their products and services, on their own experiences, on its products or services, and so on and so forth. Sometimes, look at, for example, Safaricom. Let me talk about Safaricom. Safaricom is a good company. Safaricom has stayed for us for over 20 years. And their services are good. Their services are very good. And they try as much as possible to build their reputation in whatever circumstances. They have a very good reputation. Remember, we have said reputation is a good name. Even you can even have a good name in the society. Yaani watu wakikuona kule kwa community yako wanajua sasa Sevi amefika. But we also have those people who have got a bad reputation. But as far as we are trying to change their reputation or their bad name to be good, remember, people are still remembering what you did. So in other words, we are saying this, that when you have a bad reputation, when you talk about corporate image is fluid in nature. It changes with time. Whenever you tarnish your image as an organization, don't think that you are only tarnishing for that particular period and for maybe, for example, for the year 2022. That one is passed from one generation to another. Even children of children of children of their children will know what Airtel did. They will know what Safaricom did. They will know what Kenya Wildlife Service did, and so on and so forth. So that's why companies, a company wants to start a company. As maybe, for example, you are the pioneer, you started the company. You don't start it so that it dies in the next 1 year or the next 10 years. You start it knowing very well it will last there for a lifetime. It's going to serve generations and generations and generations of people. The same case with reputation. Reputation is passed from one generation to another. How did you come to buy those Nike shoes? How did you come to buy those Puma jerseys? How did you come to buy that television, Samsung, and so on and so forth, and Philips and so on? It's because of the reputation. So who told you that Samsung is better than, maybe, for example, JVC? Who told you that? It's because this reputation is passed from one generation to another. And maybe they are of the same caliber. They are of the same, the JVC and Samsung is just a name. But they are of quality, all of them. But you prefer this brand to another. Why? It's because that reputation has been passed to you from one generation to another. So these are the following things that you should, for you to build your reputation as an individual or as a company, then these are some of the things that many companies do. Number one, there is what we call community and environmental responsibility. You find that some companies engage themselves in community and environmental responsibility. Unapata kampuni fulani, siku fulani, mwezi fulani, wiki fulani, huwa wanaamua ya kwamba this is a week of making sure that of cleaning the streets, or this is the week of doing what, or this is a month, or this is a month of making sure that we sponsor the less fortunate, something of the sort. There is also what we call quality management. There are some organizations that involve themselves with quality management of products and services, quality management of staff, quality management of things, and so on and so forth. So this list is a lot. We have a lot of things that organizations involve themselves in. We have value as long-term investment. There are those organizations that they have decided that whatever they are going to produce will be of value. Will be of value. Like, for example, talk about a company like the company that manufactures Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes-Benz is a car. It is very expensive. It also requires high maintenance. It is a high maintenance car. But now, it's of quality. So this company has invested in value for money. That's why when you go to supermarket, there are those products that are expensive and there are those products that are cheap. There are those that are involve themselves, organizations with capacity to innovate. Their work is innovation. and others involve themselves in quality of marketing, and others' ability to attract, develop, and retain top talent. Another thing, the reason as to why organizations involve themselves in what we call CSR is avoiding government intervention. Avoiding government intervention. Avoiding government intervention. Brian Mutita, you have a question? Mutinda Brian, kuna swali? When you talk about avoiding government intervention, we are saying that the press is the media. The press complaints commission is taking every opportunity to show that it can regulate its own industry. And therefore, there is no need for the government to pass legislation prescribing any of its activities. So the PCC has managed to, as far as possible, to avoid this by ensuring it governs itself properly. When you talk about PCC is what we call the Press Complaint Commission. And the Press Complaint Commission, it works with them. For example, in Kenya, we have the MCK, the Media Council of Kenya. It works hand in hand with the Media Council and the media fraternity. So if you have a complaint about a certain journalist, if you have a complaint about a certain journalist or a certain media house, you air your complaint, the Press Complaint Commission. Then the journalist will be warned. Then so we said, if you make noise for us, we do what? We remove you. So the Press Complaint Commission is a commission that has been formed, and this one is to deal with journalists who are media houses that are not following the law, or maybe, for example, they are behaving in a way. For example, if you are not satisfied, or if there is a complaint that you want to make about a certain journalist or a certain media, then you write a complaint to the Press Complaint Commission. Then the Press Complaint Commission, in short, will take action. The Press Complaint Commission, in short, will take action as far as that journalist is concerned. So the Press Complaint Commission tries as much as possible to avoid government intervention by doing work. The moment you do your work, it shows that you are responsible. That's what it means in that particular point. The number 4, the reason as to why we engage into what we call CSR is demand of public opinion. You want to have a reaction from the public. You want the public to tell you about your product. To give you information on a reaction about your product and services. The reaction can be positive or negative. So a company demonstrates its interest in what concerns the public and how issues of the future may impact upon the company's interest and reputation. So sometimes, however, a company's business behavior can become an issue to public other than those who seem to be directly affected by it. So therefore, companies need to consider what public will make out of their actions. In other words, when you see a company behaving in a certain manner or producing certain products, you can react to those particular products. You can react to those particular services and so on and so forth. So sometimes when we engage ourselves as company in CSR, we want to get a public opinion. And public opinion can be positive or negative. But those public opinions, they are actually meant for you to improve on your services and on your services and your product. Then number 5 is the ethical consumer, customer. The reason as to why we engage into what we call CSR is for the purpose of the ethical customer. So the principle that the customer would rather not do harm to his or her environment or to the society at large has influenced environment or to the society at large and has influenced the environmental force. I don't understand this particular customer, but for example, when you talk about ethical customers, we are saying that the reason as to why you engage into CSR, you are trying as much as possible to get So when you talk about the ethical customer, sorry for that, when you talk about the ethical customer, is you engage yourself into what we call CSR because, for example, you want you want your customer not to be harmed by your product and services. So you want your customer to be happy about your product, to be happy about your services, and this customer again to follow the ethics that are required. For example, if you manufacture products that are not in line with the ethics of the customer, or maybe in line with the required standards, the ethical customer or the customer can actually come to you. You actually create what we call a framework whereby customers can be able to complain about your product and services so that at least you can improve on it. But some people or some company or some organization, they take complaints negatively. Kwa mfano nikicomplain kuhusu mwanafunzi anachukulia negatively. Complaints are supposed to be taken positively so that you improve on them. Another reason as to why organizations engages themselves into what we call corporate social responsibility, they need a license to operate. They need a license to operate. For example, look at Wings to Fly. Look at Wings to Fly. If you can show the government that you can do something for the public, then I don't think the government will not give you a license to operate such a business. If, for example, you can show the government that you can build schools, you can help it build public schools, I don't see the reason as to why the government will not give you license to do that. So sometimes company engages themselves in what we call CSR so that it can be noted by the government and the government can issue them license to operate. So I want you to read on what do you call it? Discharging the organization's social responsibility. Number 1, you're told balancing the interest and also setting the criteria. Now I want us to move to something else, ethical implications of CSR, because they are what we call ethical implications. Everything that has got positive effects usually also have got what we call negative effects. Number 1 is motive. Motive. It means that when you're looking at why companies shoulder their responsibility to the society, the importance of motive depends to a great extent upon the individual's point of view. You are told, however, the importance of public opinion and the maintenance of stakeholders relationship might lead us to conclude that the perceived motivation of a company is vital. The company which is seen to be using philanthropy as a cloak to hide or mislead. In other words, you're told sometimes you need to know the motive of a company, because there are so many companies that engages themselves into what we call CSR, but they have a very negative motive. Like for example, look at it this way. If you ask your parents, there is this organization that called itself DAISY or DAISY. And this organization, they came in and told you if you can invest 200,000, you can get 400,000. If you come at that time, they're going to give you maybe 800,000, and so on and so forth. And so on and so forth. Now, the motive of the organization was to con people. Ilikuwa ni kukon watu pesa, which they did. Majority of poor Kenyans were conned their money. They invested in basic and so on and so forth. Sometimes we can even have an organization. You have heard people saying, I have a friend of mine who has started his own company, and in this particular company, he has a CSR activity. And this CSR activity, you only give 5,000 shillings, and then they look for visa, and then your child will now become a what? Say for example, a what? We'll visit maybe international what? Can actually go to international school or something of the sort, and you do that. Kumbe pale ni kuibiwa. So sometimes you need to know the motive of the organization or the person who is saying that I am doing CSR. Sometimes we have had people being trafficked from one country to another, all in the name of CSR. Wasichana tuwapeleke US wasome, kuna opportunities, kuna mzungu mahali fulani, alafu wewe unachukua msichana wako unapeana pesa. Hata upeani pesa, tuseme kwa mfano, unapata alishaenda, na hivyo ndivyo walipotea. We also have what we call susceptible target. And susceptible target, we are saying that this is to do with the age of the targeted public and recognition that young children and the elderly need special consideration. For example, sponsorship of events for charitable purposes might be aimed at school children. If the child is expected to test a parent to make unnecessary purchase or competition element is introduced, which favors the children from well families. In other words, they are saying the susceptible target. Sometimes there can be a CSR organization. I mean, a CSR that has been brought about by a certain organization. But now, when you look at this CSR, they are targeting a specific target of children, not the wale wa chini. Maybe there is a competition, a biking competition. And it means that for your child to be considered, he must come maybe, for example, with a new bike, so that he can be able to compete and then or train with it. And then from there, we will consider them to go to maybe compete internationally, maybe in a country, in a Western country, something like that. In the countries, in a country, maybe in a country like US and so on and so forth. So it means that if you have a poor child in that particular community, if a family is poor in that particular community, they will not be able to afford this bicycle. Therefore, it means that those who can afford the bicycle, this is just an example, these are the people who can be considered for a certain CSR. Those ones are called susceptible targets. Or maybe it can be, we are doing what? We are giving CSR. We are taking girls and we are considering the girls from less fortunate families to do what? We are considering them and we want them to go abroad and study. But for you to be considered, there is an application fee of 3,000 shillings for your child to be considered. So you will realize those people who will not be able to raise 3,000 shillings for the application fee will not be able to join. So in other words, you are targeting those people who can be able to join, to pay the 3,000 shillings. We also have the Footloose sponsor, and this is the company which does not have a long-term or considered policy, but to take opportunities as they arise. Footloose sponsors ni wale wenye, tuseme kwa mfano, unasema ya kwamba unataka kupeleka watoto, tuseme, let me allow you to use schools. You are sponsoring children at the university level, or maybe, for example, high school level, Form 1, Form 2, Form 3, Form 4. So unapata ya kwamba umewasupport level ya kwanza, Form 1. But wakifika pale Form 3, sponsor pesa inaisha. Anashindwa kusponsor hawa wanafunzi. That one is a Footloose sponsor. Because when you decide to sponsor someone, then you must do a budget of it. You must know I need 200 students, and I'm going, these 200 students, they will require maybe, for example, maybe 2.3 million to complete until Form 4. But there are those that sponsor, and then in between, because you are in between, anakosa pesa. Anasema sponsor alikosa pesa, sasa mtoto wetu ako nyumbani, ako Form 3, ama ako Form 2. So we are looking for money as parents or as a family. There is also favoritism and cherry picking is another ethical consideration. And this one happens when you find that there is a CSR activity. For example, again, it's all about education. We are educating, say, for example, children from less fortunate families. But now you decide we will not pick from a certain tribe. We will not pick from a certain section of the community. We will not pick from a certain something like that. So that one is called favoritism, and you are only picking a certain children from specific homes for them to benefit from a CSR activity. Also, there is also what we call over-reliance on sponsors. Over-reliance on sponsor is when you depend on the sponsor 100%. For example, maybe we are sponsoring you to go to the United States of America to go and compete. Maybe it's a singing competition, or maybe it is what we call, it's an athletic and so on and so forth. Or maybe it's a running competition. So you, who is being sponsored, you start now depending 100% on the sponsor. Number one, una depend sponsor, ndiye atakufanyia nini, atakulipia tiketi ya ndege. Number two, una depend sponsor, ndiye atawashughulikia chakula ya pato watakula. Sponsor ndiye atashughulika mahali everything, including the clothes. Yeye ndiye atasponsor ile chakula watakula, ile mavazi watavaa. Yeye ndio atashughulika kila kitu na huyo mtoto. Ni kama umemwangukia tu ule mtoto ashughulike na yeye. That is over-reliance. You are relying on the sponsor 100%. Also, the next ethical consideration is dubious association. For example, you might find a company that is giving CSR activity. For example, you want to sponsor a certain event. You want to sponsor girls like Wings to Fly. But you find that the company sponsoring the girls, on the other hand, it is used in maybe trafficking, child trafficking. That is where it gets most of its resources. Or on the other hand, it sells what we call drugs. That is dubious association. That's another ethical consideration. I want you to read on the letting others off the hook and so on and so forth. So unless there is a question, I will stop at that point. Kuna swali? Is there any question? Any question? Tunangojea password ya register. Ingine tulikuja kungoja password ya register tu. Any question?
I have a question on dubious consideration.
Dubious association.
That is dubious fertilization. Not well understood for me. As in, you sponsor maybe a certain group of people, and then on the other hand, you have.
We have said that maybe yes, the company, let's call this company XYZ. Now, this company called XYZ, it is in most of the time it is involved in sponsoring a certain event, or maybe sponsoring maybe the poor people, or the children from a poor background, maybe to access education and so on and so forth. But on the other hand, there are some dubious there are dubious ways in which they get money for them to actually be able to sponsor children. Maybe this dubious way might be they are involved in child trafficking, or they're involved in drug trafficking, or maybe even weapon smuggling, or smuggling of goods. That's where they get the money to sponsor these people. So ni kama wamejificha na hiyo sponsoring activity, wanajificha nyuma ya kuna vitu ambavyo vina happen ambavyo si nzuri. Those are dubious association. We can also look at it dubious association, where you associate yourself. Yeah, I think that is the only best way I can put it. Any other question? Is there any question? Kwa wale tunangojea password. Kwa wale tunangojea password ya register ndio hiyo. I've already shared it. Starts with 3 and ends with S. I've already shared that. You can take your register. Apart from that, you can take your register. Apart from that, today's notes have been unreached. You can download them as at now. Notes za leo tumezifungulia, unaweza kuzidownload kuanzia sasa. Then there is what we call learning activity 5.1, which is reading, and you're told read any other supplementary reading material outlining corporate social responsibility. Then you're told in the other activity, which is a discussion, argue for or against Friedman's view that the very foundation of our free society would be undermined if corporate officials accepted any social responsibility other than to make as much money for their stockholders responsible. That one, and then post your discussion in the provided discussion forum. You're supposed to post your discussion in the provided discussion forum. And then apart from that, there is quiz 5. Quiz 5 is already there for you. And lastly, there is assignment 2. Today we have assignment 2. And this assignment, it opens today at 2. It opens today at 2 and will close next week at 5. Next week, a day like today at 5. That is 4th of March. Kusema 4th of March, mtu anaweza kufikiria kuna wakati mwingi sana. It will expire next week, a day like today at 5. So this assignment open today at 2 and it will close next week a day like today at 5. Unless there is any question, I'll stop at that point. Unless there is any question, I'll stop at that point. Also remember to take your register. If you don't take your register, the next thing, ikienda hapo, wale ambao hawatake register, I'll put you absent. I'll put you absent. Don't come complaining that you are absent. What were you doing from 11, no, from 12:30 up to 2? Because that register, that password that I've given you, it will expire at 2. If you come there at 3, it will not work. That password will not work. So I'll just go there and put you absent. So do things the right time. Do things the right time. Because there are no questions, I'll stop at that point. Let's go and do those activities. We meet next week.